All right. System building. Let's talk about system building. This kind of gets glossed over, I think, for newer traders because everyone just kind of wants to hop in. They just want to toss money into the market. They just want to get started. People are trying to sell you some system that will get you a Lambo, or they just want to sell you signals or their Discord, whatever it is. You really have to build your own system. And you can use aspects of other people's systems. I have over the years. I've gathered things that I really like and I incorporated them and kind of put them together and built my own system around that. And that's perfect. That's great. That's kind of what you want to do. But you have to build it. And the reason is you have to fully trust your system. You have to know the nuances, the ins and outs, when it works, when it doesn't work, when you should be sitting on your hands, when you should be pressing. And the only way you do that is if you build and test your own system. Okay. And as a new trader, you might think that everything's kind of discretionary. If you know nothing about trading, you might think that people just sit in front of a screen and they just, because they've been doing it so long, they just know what's going to happen at all times. And that's not true. Okay. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Like there's a layer of that in there. Once you have experience, you do get a statistical edge of you have a feel of what's probably about to happen. But what keeps us out of trouble, what keeps us from blowing up, what keeps us just able to produce an edge, a consistent edge, is a system, like a mechanical system, which might have a layer of discretion. But just understand that this is going to be some sort of at least partially mechanical system, majority mechanical system. And that's why, indicators and stuff exist. They help us build systems around. They don't predict moves. These moving averages don't tell me what's going to happen next. They just tell me that, okay, this trend is pretty strong. I can look for longs. Okay, this is garbage. I'm not going to do anything in here. That's what I use moving averages for. People use RSI, MACD, whatever. Same idea. It's not predicting or telling you what's about to happen. It's processing stuff that's already happened, actually, and it might give you something that you can build a system around. And kind of the first step is think about your life. Okay, how do you plan on trading? Are you going to be day trading every day? Are you going to be trading the New York session? Can you sit through the New York session every day and take trades, day trading? Are you going to be a swing trader where you hold, for a week, 2 weeks, a couple months? Are you an investor? Are you holding for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10, whatever? Think about what your intent is for trading and really think about it. Because if you think that you're going to be looking at a daily chart and taking trend breaks or something, that's just what I do, so it's easiest to talk about. Are you cool with waiting 109 days for one setup? Is that what you're into? And then once you're in, are you going to let it ride for 128 days or 241 days? Are you able to look at your account and see the fluctuations and sit through that? And be that patient? Or are you more maybe, if we look at a 4-hour chart or something, there might be something in here like this that maybe takes, 12 days to set up, and then we get some, 6-day move out of it, whatever. Is that something you're interested in? If you're a day trader, you're probably not going to want to be that high. I start at a 1 hour, and I find setups that usually take about a day, maybe 2 to set up. One day. And then I find my setups, and then I bump down to a 5-minute or a 1 minute, and I take my entries, okay? And so you need to think about this. Think about how long you're willing to hold a trade, how many trades you're looking to take in a day, how much drawdown you're willing to sit through, and pick kind of 2 or 3 time frames. One's going to be your analysis time frame, and then the other 1 or 2 are going to be your entry time frames. Okay, and I'll get into that in a bit. And so, step 1, pick your time frames and stick to them, because people will get lost in the fractal nature of markets. you can start on a weekly and keep bumping down time frames, and you might start on a weekly and you see something like this on a chart, and then you zoom in to a daily, and inside that is this, and then and then you bump down to a 1 hour or 4 hour, and you see that inside all this stuff is this, and like you can get really lost in the fractal nature of markets, because you can keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in, and this, it's always going to keep, there's going to be more, and that can really confuse you. So I suggest sticking with one analysis and 1 or 2 entries, time frames, and just stick with them. And so now, once you get that, you get into the kind of observing stage. Okay, you're going to pull up your charts on your time frame. You can go back as far as you want. You're going to go back really far because you're going to want a lot of data. You're just going to observe, right? You might try, trend line strategy. You might start messing around with Fibonacci's. You might like find anytime there's like some kind of balance, you slap that breaks, you slap a Fibonacci on it, and you short out of the 50% or the 61%, or you do whatever. You play around. Like they're like, oh, and this one, okay, if after the break I took, it bounced out of the 38.2, but I also bounced out of the 78.6. Interesting. Just kind of play around, have fun. Maybe you do some kind of box system where anytime there's a high and low, it breaks, and then when it gets retested, you long it, or whatever. Play around, have fun. It might not be fun, but this is kind of what you have to do. Mess around. Watch YouTube videos. See what other people do. Like, are you looking to do kind of the, supply and demand type route, longing out of demand zones or shorting supply? You wouldn't hear because it's an uptrend, but if that's what you're into, you could, watch Carmine Rosato's videos on InvestiTrade. He's fantastic. Supply and demand is kind of what he's, and order flow is his thing. Do you like break and retest? Is that kind of your vibe? Do you want, anytime a high is broken, you just draw a thing and you long out of the retests of those? That's not a good example, but, stuff like this. Oh, this broke. Okay, I'll long out of it. Vincent Desiano, Options Insider. Fantastic. Watch his YouTube videos. See what that's like. Are you more of a smart money concepts kind of trader and catching the trend and looking for breaks of structure and all that stuff? Maybe MentFX is kind of your vibe. And I loved all of these guys. I was in all of their rooms. I gathered little bits and pieces of all their stuff. Are you like an ICT trader? I have never touched it. Don't really care to. Seems like a lot of work for and brain power for something you could do with like trend lines. But just try these. Test these free videos out. See what they do. See if you look at a chart, you see these things and they make sense to you. Okay, and once you kind of go through the feeling it out stage, kind of pick one or pick your pieces of each one and kind of write them down, and then start sort of testing, right? And chart out trades. So if we're like kind of doing a trend break type thing, for instance, say we, draw a trend line, and then I start noticing, okay, now say I longed the break of this 1 hour. Okay, how big of a stop would I need? Would I put it here? 30 points. That seems pretty big. Maybe I wouldn't do that. Well, how big of a stop did it even need? Well, 8.5 points. Okay, that's not bad. Let's see if I find another one that I like. Okay, maybe this one. When it broke, let's see. How big of a stop? Okay, 3.75 points. Yeah, I like that more than if I put my stop here at 13 points, because that's a little too much risk for me. And just kind of just go through. Draw whatever your setup is and think through it. What kind of stop loss, blah, blah, blah. And again, narrow it down. Start kind of solidifying what you think your system's going to be. And, start building the system. And how you would do that is you'd get a spreadsheet. And on the spreadsheet, you'll put columns and say things like, what time frame was I watching on? What time frame did I enter on? How big of a stop loss did the trade require? How big of a move did that trade offer up? You know, would I have stopped out if I took this trade? What's the context of the market during this trade? Were MAs pointing up? Were MAs choppy? And make columns for all of this stuff, and start to notice things. And you really want to track 300, 500 trades, 1,000 if you have the patience. You probably don't, but that's what you want to do. And then start averaging columns. And you'll find, because what I found when I was doing this is I started out with like an 8-point stop. And then I found that most of the moves that actually ended up happening never pull back more than 3 points. So now I know that 8 points is unnecessary risk for my system. So then I can dial my stop back to 3.5 points. And all these little nuances will matter. You know, how do you plan on trailing? You know, if I, have this here, am I going to trail, the bottom of 1 hour candles? Am I going to trail the 10 EMA? Am I going to trail like the 20 EMA? Maybe this EMA. Am I going to bump down to the 5 minute? And of course I take my entry, and then am I going to trail, candle lows on a 5 minute? Oh, I'm also noticing that if I bump to a 5 minute, there's also some more entry opportunities, and then my stop loss doesn't need to be as big. This is only a 2-point stop loss. Notice stuff, like think out loud and see what you notice, and start solidifying, start picking what your specific system's going to be, which might be every time I take an entry, my stop is at 4 points below my entry. Or every time I take an entry, my stop is at whatever low was right before the breakout candle. Or I only take trades if we're above the MAs. Or I only take longs if we're above the previous day's close. Make rules for yourself and make these columns. And this is kind of what you have to do. Okay. And will you manage a break even? When will you do that? Will you put your stop at break even once price moves 1R? Are you gonna put it at break even once it moves 2R? Are you gonna do it after you see an impulse candle? And every little tweak that you make will greatly affect what your expected value is, what your win rate is, how big of a win you get. Like what I found was, if I take a breakout of a trend line, a lot of the times, like I used to move my stop to break even after about an R, and then I'd get wicked out and then price would go. So then I started just leaving my stop where it was initially, price it off and come down back to my entry and then go, and I wouldn't get stopped out. So it's best for me and my system to not really move my stop loss to break even unless things are really going in my favor. Okay. You have to just tweak and notice and play with things, and then make the spreadsheet, put everything in it, find your averages. It's going to point you in a direction. It's going to show you, what raises your expected value, what lowers your expected value. And you might find, this system I started building, it takes too long for us. I want more trades than this in a day. Okay. So maybe bump down a time frame and start retesting the system at that different time frame, and figure out what rules keep you out of trouble. If I take 3 losses in a day, then that means that the market environment is not great for my strategy, and I'm going to sit the rest of the day out. Stuff like that. Make rules. Okay. This is crap for me. Why am I making this video at 2:05? Well, because today's market is not my environment. I took a couple losses, and then that's that. I'm done for the day. I'm not going to keep trying to trade this, because I know off of my statistics, my back testing, that this is just not my environment. And if I keep trading this, I'm just going to keep taking unnecessary losses. Our goal as traders, because you're going to always have periods of drawdown. Your goal as traders is to figure out what causes this and shorten it or cut it out, right? Because you're always going to take losses, always. So this is all to figure out when things work, when things don't work, what suits your personality, how long you're willing to sit in trades for, all this stuff, how big your stop is, how big of a move it produces, etc. So this is kind of the route that you need to go down. I hope this is helpful. And you know, obviously all these numbers are going to show you if the system's profitable or not. And you have to be honest. You know, you can't, you know, have a system where, you know, if you actually took this trade without knowing what was going to happen, you would have stopped out and then price moved in your direction. You have to log that as a loss, even though it went, right? But you also note how big of a stop you needed, because then maybe in future trades you could turn that into a win, right? Just be honest with yourself. And this is going to take a long time. And every ticker is going to need its own spreadsheet, because it doesn't matter, you know, whatever you're trading, futures, stocks, whatever, they all move differently. They all have different tick values, etc. So it's a lot of work. You're going to be doing this for months, at least 3-6 months, maybe a year, but it's worth it, because if you want to be a trader, if you're really serious about this, it's going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and effort and seat time and seeing the personalities of different tickers. You know, I love ES. I just like it. NQ, it's like NQ is not really for me. It's not my favorite. It's like a little snappier. The language of like what a point is like it's not what I'm used to. So I don't like it. CL is a real bitch. CL can be just so snappy, liquid grabby. I don't like it. It doesn't suit me well. I always get like false breaks. It's not my favorite. ES, great. Gold is more my speed. But you're only going to figure this stuff out when you're testing. Wow, my computer's low. You really only figure this out when you're testing stuff and making a system and looking at charts until your eyes bleed, right? So I'm hoping that's helpful. If you have any questions or comments, or if there's other videos or something you want me to clarify, just comment. And I appreciate it. You have yourself a fantastic day or night.